Let's sum up the story so far super quickly. Bracing allows you to produce power from the floor all the way to overhead. Aiming along your midline allows you to maximize your efficiency and direct all that power to the right place. Now we have the final piece of the puzzle, tempo. Controlling the tempo of your lift allows you to take all of that power that you're generating against the floor and directing overhead correctly and transfer it into speeding up the barbell itself. And here's the important part, at the right time. I want to be very clear that setting a strong brace and maintaining a perfect aim are prerequisites for tempo to make a difference at all. So if you're just jumping into this, I would really encourage you to go back and watch the previous episodes. But moving forward, when you're able to apply a perfect tempo to your lifts, you're not only going to make that barbell feel lighter in your hands, you're actually going to make that barbell physically go higher. So obviously, you know exactly what that means. Out of your brace, your aim, and your tempo, tempo is by far the easiest to understand and the easiest to explain. But as the lifter, it is the hardest to implement, and it is even harder to implement it regularly. On top of requiring brace and aim, tempo requires rigid focus during your lift. But let's be honest, if you're still with me at this point, you're probably pretty good at focusing on weightlifting, so it's just a matter of knowing how to do it. So let's start doing it by breaking down what tempo is, how it affects your lifts, and how you can control it. When I refer to the tempo of your lift, what I'm talking about is the change in the speed of your movement during your lift, usually around a specific position. While your overall speed is very important, what I am considerably more concerned with and what you as the lifter should be focused on while lifting is not your ability to be fast, but your ability to speed up. So what that means is the rate of change of your speed as opposed to your top speed has a whole lot more to do with how much energy you're transferring from your body into the barbell, which again really is to say how high you're making the barbell go. This is another principle that is super simple to visualize if we go right back to that basketball chest pass analogy that I love to use for demonstrating the arches of your feet. It's actually really good for demonstrating tempo as well. When you catch a basketball in a chest pass, you decelerate the ball as you bring it towards your chest, effectively building tension just like a rubber band so that you can then accelerate it out in the opposite direction. How fast or how far I can throw that ball is extremely dependent on my ability to use tempo to generate force and transfer energy. If I loosen something up or speed up at the wrong time, it's really gonna make me lose my connection to the ball, and I'm not gonna be able to transfer very much energy into it at all. The exact same is true for your movement with a barbell. If you are not taking advantage of a proper tempo, then you are not maximizing your ability to generate power or transfer force, which means you're probably not getting very strong very fast because you're not moving the weights that you could with the strength that you already have. Every percentage point that you leave off of a good tempo is very effectively making that bar in your hands or on your back heavier with every single repetition, but not in a good way. So now that you're full of fear that you aren't getting the most out of your training, don't worry, we're gonna break down how to control your tempo. Your brace is the focus on the parts of your body that should be held rigidly still and not be allowed to move at all. Tempo, on the other hand, is concerned with movement. So we're controlling the speed of what's left over or the muscles that are not braced, your arms and your legs. A broad generalization of good tempo for strength training and a great place for us to start is that when you or the barbell are moving towards the floor, you want to actively decelerate. And when you or the barbell are moving towards the ceiling, you want to actively accelerate. You're probably already doing a decent job of this when you're lifting, even if it's not conscious at all. But when it becomes conscious, you are going to maximize your output. We're gonna do this first with an empty bar deadlift. That, along with an overhead press, are the easiest movements to feel what we're going for here, but it might surprise you how hard it still is to do this well. You can use any grip width you want for this. Set your braces and put your mind's eye on your aim. Maintain focus and contact with your midline's vertical axis during your entire lift. Move towards your mid-shin start position, going slower and slower as you get to the mid-shin position. It is very possible that you will hit a position well before mid-shin that would require you to relax your lats to keep going. Under no circumstances should you relax your brace, so it's okay if your range of motion stays high. After a short pause where you check in with your 3 braces and your aim, stand up as painfully slowly as you can. As you cross the knee, speed up by 5% and then continue to slowly hit the gas for the rest of the repetition. Like all of the other positional competency exercises that we've done, this is extremely physically simple, but it requires a lot of intent and it can be very hard to check all of the boxes at the same time. At this point, I want you to grab anything even remotely resembling a barbell, pause the video, and zone out while trying to do this a handful of times. Perform anywhere from 3 to 10 repetitions while you painfully focus on maintaining a perfect brace and a perfect aim while slowly controlling your tempo to move down and up throughout the repetition. It should feel challenging, tense, tight, rigid, and most importantly, strong. So once you have a good feel for controlling your brace and your aim and your tempo all at the same time, let's move on and make this movement a little bit more challenging. In my opinion, the hardest movement to maintain proper tempo on is a back squat, even more than a snatch or a clean or a jerk. That has a lot to do with the fact that a back squat is probably going to be your heaviest movement. And when you add more and more external resistance to any lift, it makes it a lot harder to make your body do what you want it to do. But also in a squat, there is an abrupt change in direction that really makes this tough. There's a really popular cue in weightlifting that you should bounce out of the bottom of your squat, and that's what we're going to be working on here. But we need to make an extremely important distinction first. The bounce that happens at the bottom of a squat happens because the barbell itself bounces or oscillates around your frame when you reverse direction. But the way more common way to bounce in a squat is to get to a position close to the bottom and then release your speed to try to get this like bouncy ball motion out of the bottom of the movement to get back up. The problem with this method is that when you turn your body into a bouncy ball, the barbell does not change with it. It maintains its status as dead weight. So when you get soft and loose at the bottom, the barbell is not bouncing with you, it's pushing against you, essentially getting heavier before it reverses direction with you on the way back up. Usually not conscious at all, that body bounce at the bottom of your squat will commonly come from the sacrifice of one of your 3 braces as opposed to a strong tempo from your legs. And here's what that looks like. Notice how I have a tempo, but I'm using either my torso or my feet to control my tempo. That should be obvious at this point why that's a big no-no. Those muscles should be bracing, and if they are moving, they are not bracing or transferring power efficiently. This dive bomb style of squatting is also negating the potential stretch reflex that you get from your muscles and your joints when the entire system is locked in. Again, in order to properly use tempo and make the bottom of your squat work for you, you have to maintain a rigid and perfect focus on your brace and your aim, just like with everything else. By lowering into your squat with control and not sacrificing any brace for speed, but focusing on that speed coming specifically from your legs, you allow your brace to connect the floor to your body and your body to the barbell. This means you are not losing any efficiency from your pushing power and you're letting your entire body, your entire system work together. This rigidity is most easily felt by doing a pause squat. With body weight or an empty barbell, perform a few pause squats where you focus on a 0 sacrifice in your position through the bottom of your range of motion. It should feel extremely tight and you might not get as low as you normally would, but that's okay because you are now squatting with power as opposed to just going through the movements of an exercise. Once you feel comfortable decelerating into and accelerating away from a pause squat without losing 1% of your brace or aim, try to perform the same squat without the pause. Remember, it is not you bouncing out of the bottom, but the barbell bouncing around your frame. Also, remember, we are practicing tempo, your ability to speed up, not your ability to be fast. When lifting with an empty bar, you will have to use lots of restraint and control to start slow and speed up as you go. If you feel like we are laying a ridiculous amount of groundwork just to learn how to snatch and clean and jerk, you're right, we are. Most people would jump right into it, and that's fine. It's a casual approach for casual lifters. But for those of us that take this sport very seriously, that is really doing a disservice to weightlifting. And more importantly, it is really actively limiting what you, the serious weightlifter, can bring to the table in Olympic weightlifting. Remember that weightlifting is a movement, a sport, that only takes 1 second to perform. And it is so hard, they decided to contest it in the Olympics. So slow your roll, give it some respect, and get bulletproof on these basics. And I promise you, you're gonna be surprised at how easy the rest is gonna come. Implementing active control over your brace, your aim, and your tempo is extremely hard at first. But with a lot of effort, you'll become practiced and efficient at this with considerably little time. And you're really gonna be surprised how at that point, a lot of the questions that you might have about how to snatch, how to clean, how to jerk are simply gonna melt away because you have the principles of how to move your body athletically with a barbell locked in place. And when you have these principles locked in, it leaves very little room for anything else to possibly go wrong. Implementing these principles into your warm-ups, incorporating them into your strength movements, and most importantly, allowing them to dictate the positions that your body should be in will be the focus of episode 7. Don't worry if that sounds confusing because I promise if you're with me still, it's not. It only gets easier from here. Then immediately after that, we're gonna be doing how to snatch, how to clean, and how to jerk. Isn't that exciting? You are about to reap the benefits of being an extremely studious weightlifter.